Hi, everyone. So we just started the recording, so everyone looks like they're kind of signing in slowly, so we'll just get started here. So for those of you who I haven't met, my name is Erin Chesky, and I'm the Executive Director with ESAA. So welcome to the panel. So this is ESAA's second leadership webinar with Darel Baker from Keldar Leadership. Darel is the co-founder of Keldar Leadership, and he will be providing a brief background of Keldar. So I would like to thank our sponsors, Trace Associates and Keldar Leadership. So today's topic for the webinar is growing a culture of leadership. And this is the second leadership webinar leading into the opening panel discussion at the ESAA Summit on April 1st to 3rd. Hopefully you enjoy the presentation and you will be joining us at the summit. So for some quick housekeeping, the presentation will be about 45 minutes long and followed by a Q&A. So to submit your questions, please use the question feature at the bottom of your screen and we'll read them out at the end. So we won't stop through the presentation, but you're welcome to send your questions at any time. So now on to you, Darel.
Okay, thanks very much, Erin.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Well, I'm looking forward to spending a little time with you here this morning. Some of you, I'm sure, were in the last session, is exactly a month ago on the 19th of February. So this is the second, as Erin said, of webinars. So the summit, we're going to have the panel at the summit talking about leadership, and we're going to have three people that are leading organizations speaking about what's important about leadership there. So this is a great building up to it. So in our first webinar, the title was Leaning into Leadership When Uncertainty Prevails. And certainly there continues to be a tremendous amount of uncertainty with the political environment and the uncertainty of everything from interest rates to business practices. There's so much uncertainty going on. So that was a good session to make you think a little bit about what to do as a leader when uncertainty does prevail. And the sort of the highlights, the bullet points, if you will, from that session where we took a look at what we can and what we can't control as leaders. We looked at some examples of leaders who have dealt with uncertainty, talked about some keys to strong leadership. What are leaders facing now? And how can you be the leader that your team needs right now? So we're going to build on that because as leaders, a big part of what your role is to grow the culture of your organization. And everybody can play a role in that. You don't have to be at the very top of an organization to do that. However, the people at the top of the organization have a significant responsibility on the growth of the culture of their particular organization. So let me tell you just a little bit about Keldar Leadership, and then we'll get into the agenda of the day and we'll get started. So again, we were formed in 2003, and our vision is positive and productive workplace cultures. And we built that vision around the idea that if ideally the world had organizations where when people walked into it and they talked to anybody there, people were very positive about what was being done by that organization. They were positive about their role in the organization, and they were very engaged because they were a good fit for what they were been hired to do in that particular organization. So therefore, it was a productive workplace culture as well. So both positive and productive. So the mission is, what do we do all day long? Is focus and align leaders and teams. So it's all about making sure that that particular group of leaders and teams within an organization have great clarity around what the purpose of the organization it is and what the values of the organization are so that they're all going in the same direction and you don't have wasted energy where people are unclear or uncertain about what they're supposed to be doing or why they're supposed to be doing something. So how do we do this? Strategic planning, leadership development, team skill development. We use a number of different psychometric assessment tools. We use 360 feedback tools, and we do a lot of facilitated work with leadership teams to help them get that clarity as they're trying to find their direction and making sure that they are aligned. So today, with our topic, this is our agenda. We're sort of hitting on 4 points as we go through the 45-minute session. Why does a culture of leadership matter? So why should we even be investing any time and energy in trying to create this culture of leadership? Two, what are the benefits of having leaders at all levels? Why would that make sense? And how do we go about empowering leadership? What are a few of those steps we can take, and what are some of those principles around an empowered organization? And then where do we start? What are some of the starting points that we need to think about as we move forward? And again, that could be different for different people that are here on the webinar. So we'll embark on this, and hopefully I'll share a few thoughts and a few ideas that are helpful for you as we go along the way. And there will be a couple of slides that will be similar from the session that was on February 19th, because we're digging in a little bit more. We're diving a little deeper on some of the concepts we are talking about. So you will see a couple of slides that you go, oh, I know that slide. And I'll talk about them briefly because there might be a few new people on the call as well. So there's a very old saying that is attributed to Peter Drucker. The question mark out there is whether or not it actually was Peter Drucker or not that said this, but it's attributed to him. And he was a management consultant that was very prevalent in the 80s and 90s. And he's an Austrian slash American management consultant. And the saying is, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And the whole thinking here is that if you spend all your time developing your 5 year plan and your 3 year plan, and you come up with your strategic priorities and you develop goals that are aligned to that, that's very important. And no one's saying that that's not a good use of your time. In fact, we do that with a lot of companies and organizations. We help them with that. However, if your culture is not aligned with that strategy, and your culture of your actual organization is actually flowing against the ideas within your strategy, not going to work. It just won't work. It'll just be a really nice document that people look at, but they won't believe in it. And so that's why we say culture eats strategy for breakfast, is that if the culture is not aligned and it's not a strong culture that's going to support your strategy, it just doesn't matter how much time and energy put into writing out those priorities and those goals. So it's just something I want you to kind of sit with, is that culture is big. Culture is incredibly important within an organization. So last time we talked about this model, transformation model, and we've done a lot of work with an organization called Center for Organizational Design, and a lot of materials that we've used have originated from them, and then we've modified them over time. This transformation model, we use this in our high performance leadership program. We also use it when we're doing strategic planning to help people kind of understand what's under their control. I'm not going to go into the same level of detail as I did a month ago, but the thinking is this box that we have that has there are 5 components inside that box. That's what's under our control as an organization and as a leadership group. What we're going to try to do is create results, and we will get results. And the saying is that organizations are perfectly designed for the results they're currently getting. Makes sense. You're going to get a result no matter what you do. However, the environment that's outside of your organization is going to be something that's either going to sprinkle on some superpower dust to grow your results because it creates a more favorable environment for the work that you're doing and how you're set up as an organization. Or if the environment all of a sudden shifts and changes and isn't as favorable, and you haven't made adjustments within your organization, then your results are going to drop. So you will get a result no matter what you do. They can improve based on changes in the environment, or they can go down based on changes in the environment. But what you have control over are those components that we have inside that box. And the culture is a very, very important part. It's only one part. However, if you don't get your culture right, it's going to have an impact on every other one of those parts. They all interact, as you can see by the diagram. Everything's connected, everything flows. Yet the culture is the one probably very big and very large and very significant piece that can completely disrupt things. So a few more words than I'd normally put on a slide, but just to give you a little bit of a context of what we're talking about here when we're talking about culture, we have that on this slide right here. So what are we talking about when we're talking about culture? Well, it is just as you can read through these bullet points, but it's really how the organization operates. I was 10 years in the financial services field before starting Keldar Leadership, and I was a regional director with a large financial organization, financial planning organization. We had 55 financial planners in our office. And what I was really proud about is that I could invite somebody in through our doors that was considering a career with us. And I could say, why don't you go talk to some of the people that are here today? We had kind of a bullpen area, plus there were some offices, and I'd let people know if somebody was coming in that, hey, somebody might ask you a question. We don't want you to be interrupted, but just be aware that we've got somebody coming through the office. And I'd say, just go talk to anybody. And I felt good about that because they could talk to anybody and say, what's it like to work here? And I wasn't scared about what they might say. I believed that the culture that we had would be one that we'd get a fairly consistent response no matter who they talk to. So does consist of that leadership style, the worker attitudes and habits. So it's this personality that you create of your organization. And it's like the air, it's everywhere. So the culture shows up everywhere in what you're doing. And it really does mirror the true philosophy and values the organization practices. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more because, you know, most organizations will create a set of values and they'll maybe have some guiding principles or maybe some leadership principles and they'll have these and they'll have these documented. But we're back to this culture eats strategy for breakfast is if these are written down someplace or they're maybe up on the wall, but that's not really what's happening. It's the really what's happening that's going to make the difference in the organization and how it works. So when we're talking about creating a culture of leadership, we can't just write it down. There's a bunch of work we have to do in order to create a leadership environment and leadership mentality throughout the entire organization. I just want to challenge you just a little bit here. We're hearing a lot of things right now based on some shifts and changes politically around the globe and some certain practices that were very prevalent and growing in organizations now are being challenged and say, is that important? Is that a thing anymore or not? So, one of the areas that's under great scrutiny right now is diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. And the question is, well, is that important? Should that be part of your business model or not? ESG, environmental, social, and governance as a philosophy. Safety is something that probably just about everybody on this call would say is very important to their organization. Maybe there's other things that people have stated that this is what we're all about. So my question is it really what you're all about? Is it really a value that you're living by? Or is it something that you've put in place because it makes good business sense? And my thoughts would be is that if diversity, equity, and inclusion are important from a value perspective, that it shouldn't really matter what anybody in the world has to say about those qualities, if you will, or those actions that you're taking to create diversity, equity, and inclusion in your workplace. You'd say, well, we're hanging on to that. Now, if you're doing it because you just feel it's the flavor of the month, or you feel like everybody else is doing it, so we should do it too. And we're going to do a few things to just kind of window dress this so it looks like we have diversity, equity, and inclusion, but we don't really have it or we don't really believe in it, then that's not a value. You're doing it for other purposes. So these are things that you need to challenge yourself as a leadership group and say, regardless of what's happening out there in the world, what do we hold as valuable? What do we hold as being true and important as a philosophy for our organization, our company? When we go and tell the rest of the world what we're all about, and we're talking to people about joining our organization or doing business with our organization, what's important to us, and for the right reasons, not just the business reason. Now, if you're doing it for a business reason and stated as such, then good on you. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're saying it's a value, but then that value changes because something falls out of favor, then I suggest to you that that's actually not a value. That was something that you put in place from a business perspective. So I'm just tossing this out here because these are topics that are in the air right now. And businesses are being challenged as far as like, what are you doing around these areas, and are you investing time and energy there? Should you not? And these are questions that are bubbling up. So I think it's important that you review these and think about these and decide what's important. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. Again, it's spouse values versus artifacts. Just a short story here. Many years ago, it has to be at least 15 years ago, we were asked by a company if we could come on site and do some small group kind of like group work to find out what is really going on with the company. The company had gone through a merger, a bit of a merger acquisition piece, and they were a little concerned that what was happening out in the field maybe didn't align completely with what the espoused values are. When we say espoused values, we're talking about that plaque that's on the wall that says these are our values. People are our number one asset, or safety is first, or We believe in this or we believe in that. It's these values that we have posted on the wall. So we did these small group interactions where we take people in from different parts of the field. It wasn't a huge company, but we were able to do a number of different groups where we pulled people together and say, okay, well, let's ask you some questions. So the spouse values, it says, hey, people are our number one asset. Is that true? Is that how you feel? And they say, well, you know what? People do seem to be the number one asset with the company and the organization, except sometimes we don't feel that way. And here's, like when we're 80 kilometers out in the bush and we're in our Atco trailer and we're running low on propane and we've asked for it 3 times and we're worried that it's the middle of winter and it's -40 and we're worried that we're going to freeze out here and nobody's responding to us. We're not feeling like number one. Okay, all right. So there's times where maybe you're not feeling that you're as valued as we're stating here. Okay, well, what about the safety? Safety is a top priority of the company. How about that one? Well, safety is incredibly important, and we do safety training and we sign these documents around safety. Um, However, we've noticed that sometimes when our largest clients come in and they're short on time, we might cut some corners. So, well, what does that look like? Well, we have all these procedures on how we deal with things safely, and we're unloading and stuff, and we're putting cones down certain places and stuff, and we might skip a couple of safety checks if a large client's in a hurry because we get a little bit of pressure that we don't want to upset a client. Well, it doesn't sound like safety is a be all end all when you have that kind of feedback. So the artifacts that are actually happening, that is the true culture. The espoused values is maybe what you're aspiring to and what you believe that you're trying to do. But if you're hearing different things from the field, those artifacts that are different than the espoused values, that is the true culture. That is the true culture of your organization. So these are important things to check in on and see if people are truly believing that what the artifacts are and what's actually happening, does that align with the espoused values? And if not, then you've got to ask some questions like why don't they? So let's move on here. So why does a culture of leadership matter? And then again, old sayings, yeah, they sometimes stick around a long time, but where the head turns, the feet follow. And that's just to say that as an organization, if the leadership group is going a particular direction and doing a certain thing, other people will follow. And we often use the analogy that leadership is like living in a fishbowl. Everybody can see you. Everybody's watching you. Everybody's looking to see how you deal with things. What's your reaction to a situation? And based on how you handle that, that's in many cases how other people are going to handle it. That's how they're going to learn. That's how they're going to follow. So senior leaders, they have that responsibility to encourage leadership at all levels, but it's very important that they model that. Now, we bolded this point here because I think it's incredibly important. If you just keep your leadership as far as the roles and responsibilities and actions and activities, if you just keep the leadership at the top, you will build an organization with a compliance culture, not a leadership culture. And there's a massive difference between a culture of compliance versus a culture of commitment. When people are committed to an organization, they'll do things to help the organization. They won't just do the bare minimum. They'll try things. They'll take chances. They'll make suggestions. They'll look for improvements. They will do things from a leadership perspective, no matter where they're at. But if it's all from a top-down perspective and everything's kept at the top of the organization from a leadership perspective, then you'll move to a compliance culture. And that means that people will do the absolute minimum that they need to do to get their paycheck, and they won't take chances. They'll keep their head down and they won't be acting from a leadership perspective. It's simply, I'm a number, I'm doing what I'm told. So a culture of leadership is incredibly important as far as a leverage to your organization and creating that culture that people want to be part of. So there's huge benefits on having leaders at all levels. I mean, when we see an obstacle course and people have to get over a wall, if it's just one person that's making all the decisions on how this happens, and one person that's telling everybody that this is the only way it can happen, they're probably not going to come up with the best answers all the time. It's going to come from a collective viewpoints that's going to help people make better decisions. So this is where we talk about shared leadership. The benefit of having leadership at all levels is shared leadership. You're not saying the leadership has to all take place in one office or in one group of offices or one floor of the organization. You're saying it could happen just about anywhere. And that's why it's incredibly important. Shared leadership is anything that helps the group move forward or work more effectively. And those ideas can come from all over the place. Leadership is not a person, it's a function. And this is incredibly important. And for leaders, it's so important that we park our egos. It's not about ego. It's about us trying to find the solutions and it's trying to find the best answer. And it doesn't matter who came up with that best answer for moving forward. We can just give the high fives and say, that's fantastic. That's great. It doesn't matter where it came from. So any member can do this at any time when it comes to shared leadership. And the more people that share this responsibility of leadership, the more effective the team will become. If people just rely on one person to make the decisions, there's an awful lot of silence and there's an awful lot of inactivity between when, say, a problem arises or a decision has to be made and an answer comes up, and it might not even be the best answer, the best solution, but there's this big pause while everybody waits for the leader to make the decision. And it's so much more effective and productive and quick and efficient and effective if many people can see this as being part of their responsibility. So that takes us, let's get you involved here. We've got a poll here, and I think Joe or Aaron, someone's going to put this poll up. I know it's not me, but somebody's going to put the poll up here, and we're going to give you a chance to answer a question here. So poll number one, let's put that one up and see what people have to say. So if you can just take a look and say what percentage of members would say, so if we ask them that they would say that they have leadership responsibilities. So obviously we have a range here, but if you could just select what you believe in your organization that team members, we asked any of the team members that would, what percentage would say that they have leadership responsibilities?
Give everyone a few more seconds. 7 people left to answer if they're interested.
Okay, so what did we come up with, Joe? Okay, so we got a range here, anywhere from 100% and then 25%. So it's sort of in that middle range. It's almost like a normal distribution curve we've got going here. But we got like 50% and 75% are two. Well, I guess 25% is right in there too, right? So we see that, and what we clearly see is the feeling that, hey, you know what? If we just randomly ask people, we wouldn't get a high percentage that say that they've got that leadership responsibility. So, if we believe, and you may or may not, and I'm not here to try to make you a believer of this, I believe in it. If we do believe, though, that we'd be a more like a stronger organization and we'd be more valuable and more relevant and we do better things, if more people saw themselves in leadership roles, then we've got lots of work to do. And as we make these changes and these shifts, then the question is, well, that should change everything, right? Well, let me give you a quick little story here about, hold on here. My slide didn't move forward here. Let me just see here. Uh, why isn't my slide moving forward now? Do you know why my slide's not moving? Oh, there we go. We're good. Okay, so training fleas. Now, this is a story I heard many, many years ago, and I think it was Zig Ziglar that I heard it from. And the idea about training fleas. And so the idea is that fleas, I guess, can jump about half a meter in the air. That's they can do. They can jump about 50 centimeters in the air. And if you put them in a jar, like a canning jar like this, and you put the lid on, you'll hear this tick, 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 and it goes quiet. So you got these fleas in this jar and they were jumping up and then it got quiet. So you can take the lid off the jar now and the fleas don't jump out. And why don't they jump out? Is because they've been just banging their heads on this metal lid for the last 15 minutes and they went, that didn't feel good. I didn't like that. So I know how high I can jump before I hit that metal lid. So I'll jump just a little less high than that and I'll be okay. And when the lid comes off, even though now they could completely jump out, they don't. And why don't they? Because it's really ingrained that if I jump too high, it hurts. So if we've got people that have maybe tried to express their role as in leadership, or they've tried to take some chances and they've been kind of tapped down and said, no, no, that's not your role. You leave the leadership to other people. That's not you. You're somebody that's a worker. You just get that work done. When we take that off, we may decide to make a change and really open up this culture of leadership. When we make that change, we'll find that people don't jump out of the jar because it hurt before. They were either embarrassed or they were told don't do that or whatever the case might be. So don't expect that as soon as you open this up, that everything changes. It's going to take time to shift that culture. Culture takes a while to shift. So just keep in mind the training fleet. When you take that lid off, it's not automatic that people are going to jump out. So who's responsible for setting the culture tone? Well, it does come from the leadership end of things. You have the opportunity to really diminish a culture or really grow a culture, but that is truly where the culture change is going to come from. If you don't do it at the leadership level, well, it's not going to happen other places. And what happens is if people are unhappy about the culture, they will leave. There's a saying, people will quit and leave, or they'll quit and stay. And it's just as bad and maybe worse if people quit and stay. So if they don't like the culture, but they say, I don't have another option, I don't like it here, but I'll just do the bare minimum. They've quit and they stayed. So the leader gets in front of things, they're part of it, they're not leading from above, they're getting people involved. That's very important. And again, this is a slide I had from before on the last one. Alignment is so key. And this is that alignment of leadership too throughout the entire organization, is we want people to realize what the purpose is and why we're all rowing together and why we want to draw ideas out from people at different levels within the organization. So alignment, again, incredibly important as a key to leadership. And these values, both the personal and corporate values, you must stay true to this and consistent on these values. And that's why I said earlier, if you've got some things that you've been holding as values that now you're questioning because of maybe some outside influences, you've got to first step back and say, well, are these really values? Or again, are they just part of our business decisions? So the values, they should not be changing a lot. You should be very consistent in your values, and everybody should understand who your value, or everybody should understand what the values are so that they know when they're living the values as well. So I want to share with you something that we share within some of our leadership development programs about empowering leadership. When you're trying to create that organization where you want to empower people, and that's really what you were doing when you're asking people to step up and be leaders in different parts of the organization, you're really giving them a chance to expand what they're doing and step up. So there's four principles that we share with people that we believe are very, very important here in this. And one of them is share information widely. And this is actually a very good starting point. And sometimes people are concerned at a leadership level, like, why would we need to share all this information? Somebody at the front level, they're not going to care about this, or somebody at that supervisory level, this isn't going to be important to them. And that's fair to say that some people will get information and they'll say, I don't know what to do with this, or I don't see why this is important. And we need to help them understand why it is important to them. And there's still going to be some people that are going to say, yeah, I just want to do my job. Well, that's fine. Those people, they have a role in the organization, and maybe they haven't quite opened up their eyes to what the potential is from a leadership perspective, and maybe they just don't really want that. But there's a huge percentage of people that by sharing information about what you're doing and where you're going and what's important to you, that changes their perspective. And you could have some real gems in your organization that are just new to your organization. They've just gotten in the door. And by them finding out a little bit more about what you're all about and what you're doing, that got them excited. And these could be future big time leaders in your organization, and you don't even know where they're at right now. So sharing information widely, very important. Let people solve problems where and when they occur. This is huge. I mean, rather than having people always keeping elevating problems and hoping that somebody else fixes them and solves them, so much better if people can solve the problems where and when they occur. It makes a huge difference from so many perspectives. So if you think about it from an external client or customer perspective, they prefer that if there was a problem, that whoever they're dealing with at that point in time solves it, right then and there, makes it happen, makes it go away. So if you can give people some authority around solving problems and a little bit more latitude to make decisions around the problems that they're solving, whether it's a budgetary amount that they can spend up to this much money, or they can spend this much time on their own solving this before they elevate it, people will get very involved. They'll be quite excited at the fact that they have an opportunity to solve it, and they may come up with some creative ways of solving problems that you haven't even thought about. So that's an important principle. Another one is let people participate in making decisions. I've seen examples where people in a small room that are called leaders, they're working maybe with a consultant on a construction project that's going to change the way a manufacturing area is being designed, and they're not involving the people that are actually going to be impacted by the design piece. And they would tell you if they were in the room, hey, don't put your overhead doors over here. They need to be over here. And don't put those two things together because they're going to have a negative impact on each other based on us moving materials. So let people participate in making decisions. And when you do that, they're much more committed to the outcome as opposed to saying, well, we didn't get to participate in this and we didn't have anything to say about this, but I guess we'll have to live with it and I guess we'll have to deal with it. So this is a very, very important empowerment piece. And this last one that we talk about is expanding the scope of what people do. And this is very interesting because a lot of people say, oh, I'm so busy. I couldn't take on anything else. Like I can't take anything else. But it's amazing that if we offer people the opportunity to be involved at a little bit greater level in the organization and take on something else that might be a little bit more fun, like it's not just more stuff that they're doing right now, but we say, well, what about this? Would you be like to kind of get involved in, say, planning a schedule? Or would you like to help with the budgeting process? Or would you like to maybe run a team meeting? Or could you take on some of the safety responsibilities? And if it's something that they weren't doing, but they were kind of interested in, amazingly, no matter how busy they were, they find a little spot, a little place on their plate that they can add it. So expanding the scope of what people do really helps them get empowered and helps them grow and helps them take on some more leadership. So I want to just give you a few examples here from that share information piece, just to give you a bit of an idea of some of the types of information you might share that maybe you haven't been sharing. So what are the company's annual sales? In some organizations, you may not share that. Business objectives. What is it? What is it really what we're all about? What are we keep? Are we taking on a new marketplace? Are we going something out somewhere else? Who are our customers? Again, those that deal directly with the customers will know this, but some people might not. And maybe somebody new coming to the organization doesn't even know. What are the major external factors influencing our growth? You may again be saying, well, we don't want to get everybody involved in that. We don't want to share all that information. Like, get that out there. Let people know so that they can be involved in it too. Who are your major competitors? Let's put up another slide that's just got a few more thoughts in there. What percentage of the market do you have and your competitors have? Who are your biggest competitors? And why do we think that they're leading and why are they ahead of us? People like to know this kind of thing. What are the next products or services you plan to offer? You know, what's coming up? What's coming down the pike and what should we be aware of? And you might find that some people are saying, well, why that one, right? And what about this one? And maybe their feedback alters some decision making. Maybe you change the order, or maybe you don't change the order, but at least now the people are more aware and they understand why the next product or service is coming up. What are your two most serious quality problems? This is sometimes things that people kind of sweep under the carpet. So we don't want to talk about our quality problems. Wouldn't it be better if everybody was aware of what the top quality problems are so that they can be aware of it and be working on trying to solve that? How do you measure effectiveness? So we could go on and on, but you need to think about this from your own perspective as to what are the types of information that you could share more of in your organization that would help people get more involved, more engaged. This piece about letting people solve problems and contribute to decisions, it's a very, very strong principle. And one of the programs that we work with is Five Behaviors of Cohesive Team, which comes from the book that Patrick Lencioni wrote, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And one of the behaviors is people commit. They commit to plans of action. And there's some really key aspects on when people commit. And one of the things is people need to have clarity around things. So they need information. They need information about what are we doing, where are we going, why are we doing this. They need to have that clarity, and then they need an opportunity to buy in. And the saying is that when people have a chance to weigh in, they're more likely to buy in. So if we want to get their buy-in, we need to get them involved in the problems that they're dealing with, the decisions that affect them, and the more they're involved in that, the better the chances are that they're 100% committed to the plan of attack. And when they're 100% committed, now you're in a position that you can hold each other accountable. It becomes very difficult to hold each other accountable as you move forward if people weren't committed in the first place. So this again becomes that empowerment piece of letting people have an opportunity to contribute, have an opportunity to be involved and have their say. And you never, ever, ever want to go down this path from their perspective, but we're doing this just to check a box. Oh, yeah, we asked people their opinion. They gave us their opinion. Now we can check that box. No, you want to genuinely put that out for people to provide their feedback, their input, because you value it. And you want people to be valued, and they should be valued because the chances are they're going to have some thoughts and ideas that are going to make a difference on how you do things. So this is an important one of the principles here. So the last one we talked about as far as principles were expand the scope of what people do. And there's a lot of things that we can get people involved in. And if we get to know people and get to understand what their likes and interests are, sometimes people have likes and interests that are not necessarily satisfied right within their work environment, like their job description doesn't really contain some of their interests. But when you get to know them a bit more, you find out that they've got some different interests. And if you can get them involved in taking on some responsibilities, or maybe not their core work process, but maybe what we call coordinating responsibilities, you might find that they step up and they're more involved because they're interested in that type of thing. So again, whether that is, running the safety meetings, or whether it is helping with a particular special project, or maybe they've got a creative end of things and you're coming up on your 25th anniversary as a company and you're going to be putting on some celebrations, and maybe we say, hey, would you like to be part of that? And some people would say, that'd be fantastic. We want to ask the right people on these things, because some people say, no, no, I don't want to be any part of that. But there's something else that they'll want to do. So you want to think about what are the things that people can take on, and is this sort of a beginning or intermediate or advanced type of a skill or activity? So what kind of support is that person going to need to be successful? And I just thought I'd share something here that we share with people when we're talking about having people get empowered and take on these leadership roles and step up. We're asking them to do something maybe that they haven't done before. So this is where a big mistake can take place if we're not clear on the authority level that people have after we've got them all set to do something. We've heard so many examples and we've seen so many situations where people are upset with somebody after they said, well, we've given you the training, we've showed you how to do this particular activity, and you're not doing it. Why not? And they said, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do it until I was told to do it. Oh, yeah, you were just supposed to take it on and run with it. Okay, I didn't know that. Or you've got the flip side of that, where somebody gets this training, they get their support, they're all trained up and ready to do something, and they just start doing it. And then all of a sudden they're in trouble because, like, why are you doing that? Well, I was trained to do it. You asked me to do this. Well, you weren't supposed to do it until I told you to. Big level of confusion. So we find that this is a very helpful piece, what I've got on the screen right now, these levels of authority. And you can let a person know, okay, we've trained you to do safety meetings, but we're giving you authority level 1. So you're ready to go to safety meetings. When I ask you to run a safety meeting, please run it. Okay, that's level 1. Level 2, we're going to give you level 2 authority. So this person says, okay, I've been trained to do safety meetings. I know I need to check in and ask, hey, is it okay if I go ahead and run a safety meeting here? It looks like these guys could use safety training on X, Y, Z. Yes, go ahead. So you've asked for approval, right? And then consultation might be just, hey, I just want to let you know that I've got a training opportunity here for some safety training over here. Just wanted to kind of let you know, keeping you in the loop. That's kind of the consulting end of things. And then level 4 is, hey, I ran safety training for 3 different groups last week. Just wanted to let you know. Level 5 is you just own it. You're off doing safety training. You're not reporting. So you want to be careful on assigning the authority level to make sure it's the right one. But that clarity eliminates a lot of confusion and helps support the buy-in and support the growth of leadership. Because when people try something and then they're kind of shut down because of some mistake that could have been easily overcome, then it's just frustrating for them, and they're not going to own it so much. So that's one thing I wanted to share with you a little bit on expanded scope. And one other thing I wanted to do is about gauging the readiness level. And there's some tools here. When you're handling over tasks and responsibilities, you can outline specifically what it is about this responsibility needs to be done. What is that authority level? Like, what kind of budget opportunities do you have, and what kind of training and support do you need? Like, you can go through all these different things to try to get somebody set up for success, and then have a conversation about what else do they need? What other levels of support do they need so they can be successful? Because you got to remember, the whole purpose of growing a culture of leadership is so that people are feeling comfortable and confident and they're growing in their leadership approach. You don't want to be trying to get people to grow as a leader just to find out they're being shut down on things. It's back to like we've just put the lid back on the jar with the fleas, and now it doesn't feel very good again. If we take that lid off, we've got to figure out ways to let people jump as high as they can and expand on what they're doing and feel good about it. So this readiness is a very important part. And I've just borrowed things from situational leadership. We weave that into a few of the things that we do. There's these four stages on situational leadership: direct, coach, support, delegate. Somebody's never done anything before, you may be directing them. And some people say, oh, that's micromanaging. Well, when somebody's never done anything before and you've never seen them do it before, and you don't know what level or quality you're going to get, well, you probably should be directing at that point in time. As they show that they've got some capabilities, you can move more to coaching, where it's more of a back and forth discussion. And you can move to supporting, where you're just there for them if they need some help, and eventually get to delegating. But if you delegate something to somebody that really needs direction, they're lost. If you are directing somebody that's ready for delegation, they're going to feel micromanaged. So understanding that readiness, and there's a process to go through in order to understand that, it's very important in this whole part about growing leaders. So I'm just going to get poll 2 up right now, so that we can do a quick check here just to where you might think you need to spend some energy as an organization. So which of these principles that we just went through do you think are the highest priority in your organization?
Give everyone a few seconds. We're about halfway through everyone responding.
Might be a bit of a tougher question and you're kind of getting put on the spot, but it'd be just interesting to find out where people think their energy needs to be spent.
Okay, I'll share the poll. I think you
All right.
could, looking at the results, you could almost make the same graph, Darel. Just a second.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. So that actually that's interesting to me. So the sharing information, people are feeling that they're sharing information. That's good. And they also look like that's not the highest priority to expand the scope of what people do. But it does look like there's some opportunity on helping people, getting people involved in solving those problems, making decisions. And so that is a golden opportunity for people to get more buy-in, more commitment for people, and some more real interest in what's going on in the organization. So these things all tie together, but that's a real opportunity to, put some more energy into either helping people with their problem solving techniques, giving them an opportunity to jump in, finding those opportunities to get them involved. That's awesome. That's great. Um, let's going back to now. I gotta reactivate my screen here somehow. There we go. So just think about getting started. These are some things that you can be doing to get started, and you can just make a decision. Make a decision at the senior level that a culture of leadership is important. Bring it onto the agenda. So let's talk about this. Could we be stronger in what we do about growing leaders in this organization and ensuring that everybody feels that they are a leader in this organization? Get clarity around what this means and why it's important to you. Where do you need to take lids off the jars? So the let the people go, where do you see situations in your organization? And it might be people. You may have some managers or supervisors, or who knows, somebody in your organization that's actually keeping lids on jars, and you may need to deal with that, where it's like, no, we've got to change your approach to open up lids and jars. And that's a very tough decision maybe sometimes, but sometimes if you got somebody that's holding back a whole group of people because they're not letting them really flourish, that might be another decision you have to make. But give people support and skills they need to succeed. And some of the things that you might be supporting people with is actually, having facilitated sessions on what does it mean to have our culture, our values, what does it mean to be leaders. Maybe with some of your leadership groups, you're going to be wanting to take people through 360 feedback tools so you can pinpoint some of those areas of leadership that they really need to zone in on and improve. Maybe you need to use some assessments to build capacity. Maybe there's some growth and development that you need to do within your organization. There's all kinds of things you can do. But once you've done these things, and as you're starting to see success, even a small amount of success, you want to celebrate that success, because that will keep people going in the right direction when you let them know that what they're doing is right, you appreciate it, and it's making a difference. So in summary, leadership is a function. It's not a person or a specific position. A culture of leadership will lead to people feeling like partners in the business as opposed to just being a number, or it's just I'm an employee and I just do this task. They'll feel like they're part of something, and that's really valuable. You want to create an empowered organization by sharing information involving people, those principles we talked about. And you can never stop doing a good job of leading by example. So again, remember, you're in that fishbowl, and where your head turns and the feet follow, right? So you leading by example as a senior leader in your organization, or a leader wherever you're at in your organization, that's huge. You want to do that, and then that'll also help people find success. So I want to thank you for your time and attention on this. I'm hoping that you picked up a few nuggets along the way. I just want to mention again, April 2nd, I'm going to be moderating the panel that morning. We got some great folks on that panel, and the topic is why is being a leader so important? And we're going to hear from them. We're going to share a few thoughts and ideas, and we're going to hear from those folks. And that'll be a great panel discussion. And myself and my business partner and wife, Kelly, she's the Kel and Keldar Leadership. We'll be there on the 1st and on the 2nd, and we'll be there. And anybody who wants to come up and chat with us and ask us questions to follow up on this, we'd love to hear from you. And between now and then, if you want to shoot us a note at info at Keldar Leadership, give us a call, whatever the case might be. Happy to talk to you. So, Joe and Aaron, sorry, do we have time for any questions at this point in time?
Yeah, actually we do. So thank you so much, Darel. That was wonderful. If you do have any questions, by all means, start sending them in. We do have a few coming in, and we have one comment that says, not a question, but really great presentation. Thank you so much. So that's wonderful feedback. So our first question is going to be, in your view, what is the single most important action a leader should take during a period of extensive change and or growth in an organization?
Right. That's a good question. And that's one that's on a lot of people's minds right now. So, so being visible is incredibly important as a leader when you're going through change and there's a lot of dynamics going. Being visible is incredibly important. Depending on the size of your organization, it's going to be easier or more difficult. But there's ways of being visible, even like when you think about webinars and this kind of thing, to get information out. So you want to get out, be talking to people, finding out. First of all, sharing what you know. So that's sharing that information widely is important. So sharing information about what you know is happening, and being honest about where you might not be aware of things, and asking people how they're feeling about things. So that empathy about how are you feeling? Are you concerned about anything? Do you see an opportunity here? Like what's going on in their minds? So being visible, being available, and being consistent in your messaging and being open to ideas, those would be what I'd say are incredibly important in a time like that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So our next question is, what are the most effective strategies for leaders to manage and support their teams in a hybrid or fully remote work environment?
Right. Yeah, we have a few clients that are operating in that environment. And I mean, when you think about it, we talk more about hybrid and remote environments now, and a lot of that sort of, seem to be more a higher level of awareness as we went through the whole COVID piece. But obviously, global companies have been operating from this perspective for many, many years. So using technology is a huge piece. So you want to be keeping in regular contact and making sure that the teams are still meeting even though they're remote. If you have opportunities to bring people together from time to time from a team perspective, that's important. Now, I want to differentiate here. People, if you're working from a hybrid perspective, and that's allowing you to be very effective from a work perspective on actually getting the tasks done, those core responsibilities, then that's a good way to operate. It's often very efficient, very effective, less costly. So all those reasons. So don't bring people back together just because. But from time to time, having people, if you're actually capable of doing this, depending on how geographically you're spread out, if you can bring them together from time to time, maybe it's once a quarter, maybe it's twice a year, where they can actually connect with each other as people and talk about things and build relationship. that's very, very important if you can do it. If not, then you need to build up a system of regular contact through this type of a medium, like the Zoom calls, team calls, whatever you use, so that you can be consistent and give people a chance to view their thoughts on things and feel part of things at a greater level. So I'm not sure if that's a very big question, and it really varies from company to company and size of company to size of company. But the more you can get people to know each other and understand people, the better it is. One of the things, and it's not about me talking about everything that we do as Keldar Leadership, but one of the tools we use a lot our personality style assessments, and some of the tools we have allow the platform where people can access that information about each other no matter where they are. So that becomes exceptionally valuable in understanding how to communicate more effectively as teams and groups, and forming groups that are coming together to work on tasks. So there's tools out there to use. So I'm saying technology, using the tools, using some things like assessments, and when you have that opportunity to bring people together a couple times a year even, can be incredibly valuable.
Thanks,
Great.
Darel. I'd like to echo, I think this was great, and I think it's, I've always enjoyed your presentations, the information is really good and we can all use it. Next question, how early should we be talking to new team members about shared leadership?
Right. Yeah. And you know what? I think that this should be part of your selection process.
Hmm.
I think that when you should be talking about the philosophy, again, back to that espoused values are great as long as they're aligned with the artifacts, right? So if you've bought into this idea about shared leadership throughout your organization, that should be part of your promotion on when you're bringing people into your organization. And it should be part of your interview questions about their beliefs and their understanding and their past experience on a shared leadership environment. Not what do you think about shared leadership, because anybody can make that up, but what is their past experience in shared leadership, and their actual examples of where they've taken a leadership role, no matter what that job is, in the past, and made a difference in an organization. And then right from the get-go, you're ingraining this idea that, hey, everybody's a leader in an organization. No matter what your job is, you have a chance to influence and make change.
Mhm. Wonderful. So we have two more questions and one more quick comments. Thank you very much. That was great. So another question here is, how do you manage leadership culture when you are in a middle management? The lids can be taken off below me. However, there are many people above that would hinder that process.
Yeah, that is a difficult spot to be in. And sometimes sometimes we're asked to come into organizations and help them out, and we're being asked at that mid-level role, hey, can you come in and help us? And it is difficult if you don't have the leadership team on side. If for whatever reason they see it differently, that can be difficult. So if you're in that mid-level position, one of the things that we suggest, and again, it's not that all roads lead to personality assessments, but if you can get some assessment in place that allows you to understand the style of the leaders that are above you in the organization, so to speak, and get an opportunity to engage in dialogue about what's most important. So you're kind of reverse engineering that, share information widely. You're now asking questions. Okay, what are the top three things that are most important for our company over the next year, and what would really make a difference? So you're actually challenging a little bit as to what would be the differences to help our organization move forward. I've got some ideas, I've got some thoughts, and trying to encourage them to open up more. It's a little bit more difficult when you're working from that position, but you can ask questions without you got to. That's where the personality style comes in. So important, because depending on the style, that's how you might want to word your question, so it's greeted with ease. I sometimes use martial arts as an example. Is when you do martial arts, you try not to meet force on force. You try to redirect force. So if you understand the style of the people that are at that senior leadership table and what's important to them, when they maybe shut down an idea you have, you can maybe redirect that and turn it around. So it's like, okay, well, what can we do with this energy to uncover an opportunity? And if you can show some examples of success, sometimes that also will make a difference too, where somebody from that leadership team will be looking over and saying, hey, what are you guys doing over here that's so great? You seem to really be moving things forward. And then that's maybe your opportunity to duplicate that. But it is a tricky one. I'm not saying there's an easy answer.
Okay, thank you. So our last question here, do you have any suggestions for performing leadership actions without authority?
Performing leadership actions without authority. I'm not sure I'm quite fully understanding the question. I mean, I could speculate that person's maybe not been given any authority to act in leadership role, but they see an opportunity to take action or be a leader, and they're wondering how that can work out. Um, I think if I'm reading it right, I would say that it would be valuable to share what your thoughts are on that, depending on the environment that you're in. It might be important to get people in the loop as to what you're doing. I mean, there's always the old beg forgiveness, but if you don't have that trust level in your organization that you can go take a chance on something and it's still going to be okay, that's dicey. That's chancy to take that approach. If you're explaining maybe the why behind where you're going on something before you actually go there, maybe you can get that buy-in sort of on where you're going. Um, it especially depending on like, and this is a difficult one. I thought this question could be going a lot of different directions. But if it's something where you're really making a significantly different approach or taking a significantly different approach on something within an organization, and it's never been tried before and it's not understood, and you're just freelancing it, well, that's probably got some risk to it. I mean, it's got risk reward. I mean, everybody go, wow, well done. You did the greatest thing ever. This is fantastic. Thank you so much. And here's your promotion. But if it doesn't go well, then it could be completely the opposite direction. So I think you'd want to get people in the loop and understanding why you'd be trying something differently and why you'd be going a different direction, if at all possible, to get at least some buy-in on what you're doing. I think that's a little bit of the safer approach if you think for whatever reason it might not be greeted with applause.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So everyone's got Darel's information. It's on your screen. So if you want a copy of that, or if you have any questions and you wanted to reach out to me, I can put you in contact with Darel as well. Thank you again to our sponsors, Trace Associates and Keldar Leadership. So we're going to end the webinar. And just so you guys all know, the session for the summit is on the screen. So this is what Darel will be presenting at the summit. And hopefully we'll see you all there. Enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, guys.
Okay. Have a great day, everyone.